welcome. We are Del and Debbie's Mind, Body, Soul, the home of invigorating talk on all things to do with health and well-being. And I am one of your hosts, Del A.D. Jones, and I'm a certified transformational coach and a 3 principles teacher and practitioner. And I teach psychological well-being so that my clients can achieve a more peaceful, loving, and joy-filled life regardless of their external circumstances. And before I introduce my fabulous co-host here, I'm going to remind everybody that we are a call-in show. And the number to call in is 323-284-7826. And we're also running live on Facebook, our Del and Debbie's Mind, Body, Soul Facebook page. If you have a question or a comment you'd like to pop it in there, I will keep my screen up and answer any questions you might have. And I think that covers it, Debbie.
I think you did it.
Okay.
I think you really did it.
Finally.
Hi, everybody. I am the other half. I am Debbie Carlin Boyle, and I am certified as an integrative nutrition, health, and wellness coach, a personal trainer, and a fitness instructor. And I like to help people find balance in their life with everything that feeds us in addition to the food on our plate. We have a magnificent show for you today, and it's my pleasure to be able to do the introductions here. So our guest today, Joe Leaders, has a very diverse background in business. First coming from the corporate world, then an interior designer for over 25 years who was featured on HGTV. Joe has also owned a fair trade company out of North Africa, as well as being a yoga and a meditation instructor. Joe's interest in holistic health and healing and helping others find their path to healing has led her to where she currently sits today as president and CEO of Ambient Elements, the U.S. division of Alpha Wellness Sensations, who has been building award-winning designs in the healing sector for over 35 years. Joe's personal interests include working with cultures who use alternative modalities of healing, including yoga, meditation, fasting, music, ancestral knowledge, and reconnecting with nature and animals and sacred plant medicines. To talk about her personal journey that brought her to a place that encourages others to find what they love and then allow the energy of the universe to help them share with others as well, will you please welcome our very special and amazing guest today, Joe Leaders.
Hey.
And her dog, Monkey.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we can't forget Monkey.
Bring Monkey up. So, yeah, there's
Monkey is,
Hi, Monkey.
We got Monkey Love here. He's adorable.
Welcome, Joe.
Yeah. So before we start, we always like to get a little bit of background, and you actually have a story that rivals mine. In fact, you top mine. So let's go back a bit and talk about where you grew up and just give a little brief, because we could be here for like 4 hours discussing it.
Yeah, it could be a long
That's another show.
Right?
But just, I mean, because I think your whole, who you are today and how you are in the world is definitely started way back then. So,
and I don't know the story.
Oh,
so
wow.
Like you do, so I want to hear.
Yeah.
My headphones cut out a little bit. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
yeah,
I can hear you.
Can you hear us?
I can.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you. Thanks for asking. I was born to German parents, and so I'm actually first generation American. When my parents came over to the United States, things got really tumultuous for them. They wound up divorcing at a young age for me, and I have...
So when was this? What year are we talking that they came here?
They came to the United States, I guess, in the 60s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And my mom, very thick German accent. My dad, people actually thought he was British because there was so much... I think anti-German sentiment was happening.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, we see that at different times throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was very careful with his V's and W's. You know?
There's no
and
discrimination.
So, yeah. My mother had grown up in trauma herself. And I didn't understand that as a child, but it definitely became part of her inability to parent healthy in a lot of ways and protect her children.
Understandably.
And I know so much more about that today and through my own journey of trying to find compassion for that whole story and basically hurt people hurt in a nutshell. If we don't work on our own healing, it goes to the next generation.
Absolutely.
So childhood, very tumultuous. I did wind up getting separated from my sisters and wound up in foster care and reunited with my father after many, many years of not seeing him.
How old were you at this point?
When I finally reunited with him, I guess I was 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the foster care were the ages below that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and younger.
Yeah.
ages.
How old were you when you were separated from or taken from your
that's
mother?
really
Oh,
tough.
this came out again.
Oh,
One second.
sorry. Yeah, I know it's a little bit dodgy.
Can you hear me again?
Yes, we can hear you.
The good news is we can still hear each
Yeah.
other whether we're plugged in or not. It's just a
Exactly.
different kind of sound.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, how old were you when you were separated from your mother and your siblings?
Let's see here. Let me think about it. And forgive me on time frames, because what I've learned is that when we go through trauma,
Yeah.
sometimes time
Certain
just
things,
takes a
yeah.
different thing. And I was really hard on myself for that. I started counting time really well when my son was born 26 years ago.
Yeah.
So I remember a lot. But if you ask me things like who my third grade teacher was, I have sometimes blocks in memory because I was coping.
Traumatic.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
in trauma,
exactly.
and now I understand what that all means. So, around the age of 8, I know my parents separated and got divorced around the age of 5. My mother, unfortunately, married a man who was very unhealthy. He was a pedophile, and he won the lottery with his wife and 4 daughters.
Unfortunately, that is
gosh.
so
And I
common,
didn't know
and
this
it's
story.
This
This
is
is
sorry,
awful.
really, really
So
terrible.
sorry.
It's okay. I've learned that's part of what I can bring to the table to help others heal, and the work I
course.
continue doing on myself. But it definitely leaves its mark, and I've learned so much about really going back to how important it is for us to accept responsibility of our own healing so that it doesn't affect other people. And I look at the situation with my mother's choices with her partner would have been different had she had a different childhood
Yes.
and done the work on herself. She would have been like,
Absolutely.
that is not okay, right? So
Did she believe you or your sisters when you went to her, or did anybody go to her with what was
Initially,
going
no.
on? No.
and neither did
Yeah.
her mother initially.
Okay. And so
And then she did, and now has also said she denies it as well. And my sisters and I all know it was very real. And it's not a story we're proud to tell. There was a lot of shame my entire life about the story, or even being able to talk to it. I'm surprised right now I can talk to you without crying because it's a sad story. But on the other hand, it's a story of life, and it's so common, and it's something that we should be talking about.
Absolutely. Our show last week was all about the same thing, the Me Too movement, and how, a lot of us carry this shame around in us, which, it wasn't our shame. And it's to speak out is so helpful.
important. And the more we give a voice to it, the
Yeah.
more prevalent the speaking out
And
will
you
be and
are-
the less taboo.
Yeah, and you are a model, an absolute example of, like you say, taking responsibility to continue to improve your life, to not sit in the suffering and the pain, and to really help others. And so, it's tragic as it has been. Thank God, we have you who you are today, and the work
Thanks,
that you
Nell.
do.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I'm
so
still a
true.
work in progress.
You're
I think
well, we
fabulous.
all are, no matter what we've gone through,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But you do
the ups and
incredible
downs.
work. So.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I had to, I
Yeah.
guess. And for me, going back to that journey, I wound up having my son at a young age, making poor choices and partners myself. And then when my son was born, I finally understood unconditional love. He didn't care what was in my bank account, if I was wearing makeup, not wearing makeup, if I was, 300 pounds or 100 in a tiny size 4. It didn't matter. I was mama. And that was
You gave
this,
him love.
yeah,
You
this
were
was
love.
this unconditional love that I never felt before that woke me up right there. And okay, I need to start taking care of myself so that he had a healthier mother and a healthier environment. So that was the first thing.
But going back before that, I want to see what brought you to getting pregnant and having your son at an early age. You said that you reunited with your father at 13.
I did.
And what was that like for you?
It was confusing because at the same time I had almost this sense of betrayal of my mother, who I still love very much to this day, but we don't have a connection. And I left her house at the age of 13, and she disowned me. And
So is there resentment, or you've gotten beyond the resentment of
for
the
me,
yeah.
there was all kinds
At
of
the time,
feelings,
of course,
many
yes,
feelings,
yes.
sadness, resentments, and ultimately it led to personal forgiveness of shame that I carried within myself for different things that had happened. And then there was also this huge sense of compassion towards her. Because if she would have been my friend, I would have said to her, it's okay, you can get through this, and love conquers all, and forgive yourself, and just believe in the process, just trying to soften the edges of healing. And instead, there was a lot of fear, anxiety that was pushed down for generations in my family, and women being victimized. And as long as I think in general, because I believe everybody on this planet will face trauma. That's what we're here to do,
that's
is
life.
learn and grow. And if we look at that trauma and we place blame, like it was my parents, it was my rough childhood, or it's because of this, or it's our president, or it's our culture, or it's whatever it is.
So easy to blame.
Right.
not
If we
look
place
this
blame,
way.
we're powerless and we're victims. And there was a turning point for me that was more about observing and understanding and trying to, seek first to understand before being understood. Stephen Covey said it a long time ago.
Exactly.
But that process of leaning in and observing that gave me a lot of compassion. And I think that's important for us all to do. But that was part of that. You asked me at the age of 13 what was going on then. Reuniting with my dad, I wanted to get to know him. And unfortunately, he passed away in my early 20s, and he was a workaholic. And I didn't get to know him as much as I wanted to. And he was a good man. He was a really good man. He was heartbroken. He was depressed. He felt lost. He was angered about what happened to his daughters, and he felt powerless through it. He had his own feelings of emotions. And I could have held on to, but he didn't save me. He didn't get me out of that environment, and there were the signs. But if I do that, it doesn't help any more healing, right?
It actually holds you from healing. It sets you back.
Yeah.
So you went into foster care, and did you age out of foster care? What happened?
No, I wound up going to, my mother also moved a lot throughout the United States, and I wound up being in, I think it was something like 10 different schools before 7th grade. A crazy amount of,
and that's actually too. New relationships come and go, and
good and bad comes
well,
from
exactly.
that.
It gave you such a strength
ability
and
to connect, and to
quickly
show up, and
but you could also lose some strong relationships that you're leaving behind, and have that's a flurry of emotions that go along with that.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And so, I was, I guess, in my early teens, because of the environment at my dad's house. He was traveling a lot, working a lot, and there was no be home by this time. All of a sudden, I had free reign. And at my mother's house, it was different. I couldn't watch anything I wanted on TV. I couldn't have friends over. It was a very strict environment. And I should say I could have friends over, but it had to be the right, perfect, there was a very
lot
strict.
Of controlling.
A lot of control. And at my dad's house, it was,
so that's
total
I missed
opposite.
that. You went to live with
Yes,
that when
I
you
did
reconnected, you lived with him.
I went and lived
That's
with
so
him.
you, of course, so you were there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was just free range. You know, I was able to go and party and drink at far too young of an age, no parental guidance, and almost like, you know, I was let out of a
Wild child.
Yeah, all of a sudden I went,
we get
it
that
went the
when
other
we're not-
extreme.
yeah.
so
Because you could.
Yeah.
Why not test it?
No,
Yep.
exactly.
I know I
And-
had a teenage years like that, and I
Yeah.
understand. I had an alcoholic mother, single parent, and she didn't give a crap, so I
Yeah.
just went off
And I
did.
think my dad felt maybe guilty, so he didn't want to discipline.
Yeah.
And I was the youngest, and my next sibling was gone, you know, 5 years older. So I was still in high school when they were all gone already.
Yeah.
And two of the oldest ones, they were gone when I was, I think, 10. I can't remember, but it's a crazy story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But
You still managed to do so well. I mean, you still managed to sort of get an education and
Yes.
get into the whole business world, and I mean, it's pretty
funny
remarkable.
when you say that, Del,
Yeah.
because
Well,
I
it was a
guess,
process.
Yeah, I guess I
Steps.
still look at it and go, what is well? What is success?
Yes,
What is
it's
because I
true.
feel like I
Yeah.
have so much to do still.
I know.
you
We all
Well,
do.
we're always on the learning wheel,
Yeah. Right.
and no matter how successful we
Yeah.
are or aren't,
Yeah.
we're always
Right.
on that
But
wheel.
a lot of
which
people in
you're
that
aware of.
circumstance would have just like hit the streets or really not been able to
And a lot
survive
do.
from that. So exactly. So it
You
was,
know, I have to say that myself and my three sisters, we have almost like a soap opera story that I don't think any of us have ever felt comfortable talking about, much less on a talk show.
Yes.
To be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Yeah.
And so it does
Well,
catch-
understandably,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. But I do have to say what comes out of it is I'm so proud of each one of them and of myself for at least continuing to show up and be our best.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and you know, I hope that, like my oldest sister and I, we didn't speak for I think 8 years. And it was because we were never taught to be kind to each other. There was a lot of like sisters were fighting, and there because the energy was negative in the environment.
Get that.
And so now I adore her. I'm so proud of her, and I've learned to see her role as the oldest and how she didn't feel like she could do anything, and you know, reconnecting through all that as well.
you
So-
were babies trying to protect each other. You were
Yeah.
all little ones.
It was just survival, really.
Yeah.
In a
We
lot
were
of
little,
ways.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
afterwards, the you just have to relearn how to get to reconnect and know each other, you know? And
So
feel,
I was sorry to step on you, Debbie. I was just curious. Did you always know, I mean, when you were younger, that you wanted to go into the helping profession or the healing profession? Or when did that sort of sink
when
in?
did that turn on?
You know, Del, I work with a beautiful community in Colombia, and they're spiritual healers and teachers, and they've been an amazing blessing in my life. And a lot of the work we do is trauma healing, and we remember who we are. And they use different modalities to do that work. But to answer your question, in doing the work with them that I've done over the last few years is, and I'd been in counseling ever since I remember the state actually put me in, you know, child psychologist counseling
so at a
and
young
art
age.
therapy. And so I would get to the point when I was in my 20s, there was one point where I remember walking into a counselor's office and looking at her bookshelf and going, I've read every single one of those books. Let's cut to the chase. I don't want to talk about this, you know, don't feel sorry for me. Make me a healthier human
Yeah,
being. But
absolutely.
the work that I started doing with this beautiful community that does this ancestral healing, they helped me remember something, which was when I was about 5 years old, I sat on this couch. It was definitely a 70s sofa lounger thing. And I remember as if I was there like yesterday. And I was looking up at this lamp and I was like, where do we come from? And where did they come from? And where did I kept going back.
Yeah.
And then at the age of 5, and then I kept going, but then what happens after I die and my kids die and they die and they die? So I was asking
You
these
were
huge spiritual
questioning
questions
everything.
at a young age, and I wasn't getting the answers. And I don't know if my mother thought I was crazy, or it's very possible because I was a little different in a lot of ways. But to answer your question, I think I knew in a lot of ways I always wanted to help people. Like I wrote poetry, and I always brought my mom flowers and poetry and wanted her to be happy and just wanted to help with the healing of others. What I didn't understand until I started doing this work is I have to thank the darkness.
Yes.
And I have to thank the hard things that happened to me because they helped me lift the veil on a deeper subject of humanity's healing and my own healing. And doing the work with this community made me realize if we want to heal our mothers or our children, either direction, or our family, the work starts with us.
Absolutely.
And we can say, love yourself.
Yeah.
Well, to me, that just sounded like, okay, yeah. It just sounds weird. It's uncomfortable even to say.
Oh,
we
I'm
do
so,
have a
Joe,
phone
I'm so
call.
sorry. Yes, we have a phone call.
Oh, good.
Hello, caller. What's your name?
Aaron,
Oh, hi, Aaron. Where are you calling from?
Los Angeles.
Welcome to the show,
Sure,
Aaron.
yeah.
Do you have a question or a comment for Joe?
Hi, Aaron. Aaron,
And you know each
Aaron
other.
actually works for our company or with our company. I'm not going to say he works for because he brings so much to the table. He's just a wonderful addition. But I have to be honest with you guys. I bugged Aaron to call us because he brings so much to the table on
that's wonderful.
health and holistic healing and wellness.
Well, then let's find
Yeah.
out. What do you do for the company, Aaron? What do you do?
Okay, well, Joe, first off, thank you for the invite. It is always a pleasure to be able to talk about health and wellness with people. So it actually made me happy for the invite. I was brought on as a Los Angeles sales manager, and my kind of addition to the team is not only, promoting Ambient Elements, but the general idea of health and wellness, which is pretty much the cornerstone. It's the reason why Ambient Element exists. So I have
Fabulous.
typically come from a natural products background. So when you think of medicinal mushrooms, superfoods, omegas, that sort of is kind of, the
your
pool
world.
that I had swim in the
Yeah.
most. Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful.
And now I'm adding that kind of passion for health and wellness to Ambient Elements.
That's
Wonderful.
wonderful that you can do what you're passionate about. And
And what's it working with Joe like?
and Monkey. And
Yeah,
Monkey.
Monkey and Vlad.
Her and Vlad are amazing. It was
Yeah.
funny when I first met her. We ended up having a multiple-hour conversations around just, our passion for natural products, for health and wellness, for just really providing that kind of expertise to our fellow human beings. So it's been nothing but gravy ever since.
Oh, wonderful.
That's really
Yes, you're very
great
lucky.
compliment. Yes.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you for calling
Bonus.
in. We're going to
Thanks,
hear
Aaron.
all about we're going to hear all about the company, Aaron, in just a
Yeah,
few
we're
minutes
getting
here
there.
because we're getting there. Yes,
thank
thank you
you.
so
Awesome.
much.
Well, you ladies have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You too.
Thanks, Aaron.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very
Aaron's
nice.
awesome. And
Yeah.
that's one thing. It's about the people.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
know, and
Always.
one of the many things I've been blessed with is being able to work with people that support health and wellness. And when you can do it in your workspace, then it means that it's around you all the time.
Yeah.
If you can create that in your home space
That's
and
right.
in your relationship. I have a wonderful marriage, a wonderful husband who's supportive of healing in himself and in others, and that's where it starts. And then a community, and then, like I said, I don't consider Aaron really an employee, but the people that we have on staff and on board with Ambient Elements and Alpha Wellness are incredible and talented too.
Well, that's because of you.
Yeah.
You attract some amazing
Yeah,
people,
you're
and who
able to-
doesn't want to be in your presence, and Vlad as well, and everybody. It's just such a warm and inviting and loving group.
Yeah,
I'm going to be applying for a job soon.
And yeah, that it's that snowball effect
Yeah.
where you all are on that wheel of health and wellness, helping each other to obtain it and pass the word along.
Yeah.
Love,
And like you
love
say,
it.
find your passion and learn how to package it in a way that you can give it to others and incorporate in your daily life. So
yeah.
How
Very
did you get
cool.
in from all this, from being in the corporate world? So you went to college.
Well, that's an interesting story. I had my son at a young age, and I was all set to go to college, NYU, and I was still, I think, at the stage in my life where I was looking to be with the father figure. And his dad, 15 years older, was an actor, and I wound up pregnant out of wedlock. And
Living in New York? Were you
yes,
in New York?
and I completely went a different direction. So did I wind up getting a college degree? No, I didn't. And it's one of those things that I had to work really, really hard without it. So when my nephews or other people say, should I go to college? Or I look at my son who graduated summa cum laude, I was like, yes, I just feel like it does give you a leg up.
Yeah.
But I made it without it.
Well, it gives
but,
you,
you know.
it's not necessarily what you learn in the subjects. I mean, yes, that's a big plus, but it gives you some life skills. But I think you owned those, like you created, like you said, you worked really hard. You got those skills on your own. You didn't need the college environment to
But
get
sometimes,
it.
because I opted out of college early too, and our stories are so parallel on so many levels. But I always regret, because I think having a college degree gives you an advantage. Just
Gets your foot in the door.
Well,
too.
a foot in the door,
Yeah.
and psychologically, I think you
Yes.
feel
There's
like
that.
that's where
Yes.
I think it really mattered for me the most. I found myself going back to school much later on to do that.
So what I did, and you probably did it as well, Del, was I went back and took a lot of different courses and different things, like in design and things that I was passionate about. And everything in the end, what's that saying? You know, in the end, everything's okay.
Yeah,
and
it all works out.
if it's not okay, it's not the end. And I'm, you know, we're still going down those paths, but I'm still learning so many things. Like right now, I want to go back to school to be a holistic doctor and learn more about plant medicine work, because I'm passionate about that as well.
I'm
you
in
know?
that right now.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it's endless.
Yeah.
You just keep, one thing leads to another, to another, to another.
us
And,
alive.
you know, and I've been in school for 4 years. I just keep
proud of you,
getting
Del.
different.
We all exactly.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. I think that is the blessing of not having
learning.
a degree too early, because we're always in that student mode and we're so open to receiving new
Yeah.
information.
Oh, we have another call. Hello, caller. Are you there? Hello?
Hello.
Hello. Okay, well, if you can hear us, call back.
Yes,
Okay,
'cause we can't
we
hear
lost
you.
you somehow.
So just on that
yeah.
subject of because you keep mentioning plant medicine, I know you have something with you that in the green bottle.
Oh, yes,
Yeah. So
yes.
that's something. Describe what that is and what you use it for, because I know there's a couple of things that you carry with you that really are helpful. So I'd love you to share that.
I'm going to depart from the text because it'll make sense why I carried the green bottle.
Yeah, exactly.
and the little
Yes.
brown thing
Yeah.
with me. And it's usually in my purse, which isn't very, may not be very hip for modern day culture to be carrying, you know, a green bottle with, you know, what looks like a bunch of plants and
Smells
ferment.
lovely
Yeah,
though.
it smells incredible.
Yeah.
So I had gotten really sick about 13 years ago. I had quite a cancer scare, and I had, my lymph nodes were swollen. I was fatigued. I was pushing myself so hard, really running from my fears. Literally, I was running 50 miles a week, doing 1 to 2 marathons a year, and I
Oh, my
did that for
goodness.
14
Yes.
years.
It's
And I was a single
it's
mom,
overtraining.
and I was overtraining, and I
You were
was
taxing your adrenals. Were
yeah, and I was living on hydroxycut, if you remember it, taking it by the
Oh,
handfuls.
yeah.
And, you know, I was like slim fast, hydroxycut, totally not taking care of myself. And what I wound up doing in that process was completely damaging my immune system. So I had this cancer scare, my lymph nodes were swollen everywhere, and I was so blessed to have early detection. And it was a wake-up call for me. I did get diagnosed with fibromyalgia. My pain levels were high. I was getting migraines. I'd have to sleep in the afternoon. I couldn't think straight. And here I had this beautiful son who it started when he was in junior high. And I felt inadequate as a mother. At the same time, I'm running too much.
You were
and-
feeling horrible. It's really
and
hard
I was a
to feel
workaholic.
adequate.
And I was in a very unhealthy relationship.
Oh, we got our
gosh.
caller back. Hold
Yes.
your thought.
We gotta
Hello,
come
caller.
back to
Are you
that.
there now? Hello? Are we not clicking in?
Nope,
Okay.
it's not working.
Call
Sorry.
back. Try again. I'm
Yes.
so sorry. It's not working.
Okay.
All right,
So,
so-
back to
yes,
story.
so-
So
And so I wound up on a lot of taking different medications. I was a really good student of Western medicine. I would go to the best doctor I could find. They would write a prescription. I would start taking it. So I did the guaifenesin protocol. I did all kinds of different things. And finally, I went to a doctor, Dr. Yu in Minneapolis. He worked with the Mayo Clinic. He was a leading expert with fibromyalgia. And he started saying some things with his background in Chinese traditional medicine that started clicking for me because I knew what I was doing wasn't working.
Yeah.
And I had insomnia, so they were giving me Ambien to sleep
So
at
one
night.
thing
I'd wake up in the
creates
morning.
another problem.
Yeah.
And,
And I was having, the pain levels were really high. I was also very angry, very emotional. My vibration was just very, I wasn't acting out, but I was suppressing that. And it was very hard. And my ex-husband at the time, now we're friends now, and we've gone back and looked over that time. It all made sense because we were both not awake during that time. But anyway, going back to that piece, I knew there had to be a different way. I started following raw foods, Gerson therapy, and Dr. Yu told me to start using an infrared sauna. And I was like, well, I don't like to sweat. I remember that was the first thing. I was like, all right, I'll try it. And then I started to understand a couple of things. Metaphorically, we say, fill your cup up with goodness, right? Get one cup in this life. But if the cup has a bunch of stuff in it, it's good to pour it out. Well, both detoxification on a physical level, on an emotional level, looking at who are the 5 people surrounding you, the environment you live in. I poured that cup out and I wiped it out really good. And I started filling it up with goodness, which was healthy nutrition. But detoxification, that sauna did work. In 6 months, I was able to get off of all pain medication. And I started following raw foods and eating very healthy.
Oh, hold on.
One more
Caller,
try.
are you there? Hello. Hi. Hi. What's your name and where are you calling from?
This is Catriona Reed. I'm calling from my car in California.
Ah,
Hi,
is that you?
Catriona.
How are you?
I'm well. I haven't been able to listen to the show up to now. So I'm kind of calling in blind because I love you both.
Oh, that's so
well, we love
sweet.
you too.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh,
So we have the wonderful Jo here,
who
and
you know
she's
very, very well.
talking about all this healing that she did and all the ways that she understood to help herself heal. Do you want to make a comment or talk to her?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'd like to make a comment and then have a little bit of a conversation. And I just think, Jo is an amazing catalyst. I've had conversations with her when she's kind of denied being an artist, denied being a healer, denied being all the many things we know her to be.
Yes.
And she's such a catalyst. And I can speak both for myself and my partner, Michelle, who's also driving with me in the car.
Hi,
when
Michelle.
I say that
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
last spring, not even spring, summer, has been such a catalyst for transformation in our life because of how she connects. And I say connect meaning people and modalities and ideas and things, how she connects so well. And I think if I have any comment, it's to, my premise is that everything in the universe is connected, everything is alive, and everything is actually conscious. And so our obligation, our duty, our pleasure as healers, as wizards and wizardesses, is to play in that field of interconnectivity. And when I think of who Jo is, and over more than 6 months, watch how she interacts with people and puts different people together. It's such a magical thing to see. So yeah,
That's wonderful.
Beautiful.
That is just
I know.
lovely.
Thank you, Catriona,
yes.
for introducing me to Jo too. It's been great.
Yes.
What a journey.
yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Wonderful.
Well,
So-
thank you for calling in and
Yeah.
giving that great
We're-
endorsement. We're just getting
sure,
into
my
all
pleasure.
the modalities of healing that she's used and helping others
good.
with as well. So we're going to spend some time in that right now.
Catriona
Good.
and
Well,
Michelle are
I look
incredible
forward
healers.
to the recording.
Okay,
I
wonderful.
can't seem to get online.
Well, we'll make
Yeah.
sure you get the link, or
Yes.
you can go straight to Facebook whenever you can.
While they're driving,
So-
I don't
No,
suggest
no,
that.
no. I said whenever you can. I don't mean right now.
Okay.
But anyway, thank you so much. It's so good
Okay.
to hear from you.
See you
Thank
soon.
you, Catriona.
All right.
Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
in my life.
I know.
Catriona and Michelle are incredible.
Yeah.
They really are. I look at them as mentors, and they're, in your life, if you're open enough to different ideas and different you can call it godsend or universal, or synchronicity, whatever you want to call it that works for you. They were a beautiful addition to my life that make me understand the importance of being authentic. And showing up for yourself and letting your light shine and doing that work that you're meant to do.
Yeah.
And they're so supportive of that. And they're both incredible mentors.
And incredible
great.
examples of that.
Yes.
Living
They
their
are.
life
Yeah,
from
yeah.
that's how they
that
lived
way.
it. Yeah, and that's great because you need that. You need
Yeah.
those endorsements. You need those feelings of, that you are on the right road and that you are doing, because internal feelings are so strong, but sometimes you need that outside influence. It can't just be you.
Community.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and a lot of times culturally in our society, we're told to fit in, not to break out. And who are we? And follow our own blueprint for the soul.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I work with that exact concept with clients, that I talk about fitting out instead of fitting in. Being authentically who you are, and don't worry about who's eating what, who's drinking what, who's wearing what. Be you.
Go
Who are
inside.
you? So
Yeah.
I try to coach them to give them the power to feel like it's okay, because
Keep
it
doing
should
it
be.
because
Yeah.
we need
Yeah,
that message.
we need more.
Yes.
We need more.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
need there to be an effect like that, to be a
Yeah.
ripple effect against that. So,
Yeah.
obviously you're creating that. So infrared helped you.
It did. And so I'll be honest with you, the first sauna that I bought, I was still doing design work, which that was happening in my life. I was also in the restaurant industry. I was doing all kinds of things and working way too much. I was working at Manpower. I had all these great jobs, I really did, of doing things that I was excited about, but they weren't in the heart space. And so I would do them for a little while, and I'd actually be good at them. And especially because I'm a workaholic,
I was
if you
going to
put
say,
energy
you
into
put
something.
you put all the
Yeah.
right mindfulness into
yeah,
it.
and I was just giving it everything I had.
But it leads you also.
It does,
Even
and
if
it
it
teaches
feels
you.
like you don't belong at the time, it teaches you right
yeah,
to the
it
next.
can even
It's
teach
a
you what
ladder.
you don't like.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Exactly.
I
Just
don't
as in
like
important.
keeping up with the
100%.
Joneses. I don't like wearing a suit. I'm currently in flats right now, and I actually considered, should I put heels on before I came in today? And I went, no, I don't want to anymore.
You don't have to. You're tall and statuesque. You don't need to.
Right.
Yeah.
So back to the
Yes.
infrared,
Yeah.
the first one that I got, I rented a space that I was using when at a chiropractic office. And then I thought I want my own in my home. And so I bought one. And I wound up sending people to the company where I bought it so much that eventually the company said, hey, do you want to come and work for us? And I was like, I'm not a salesperson. I don't want to sell these things. So he said, well, actually, you sell more than any of my staff does because of your own testimonial of how it worked for you. So that was the beginning of me getting involved in actually selling infrared saunas. And to let you, if you're not familiar with how it works
That's
in the
what I
body.
was just going to ask you.
It's really interesting. It was actually NASA who started working with it in the 50s. And they used it to keep the fuselage warm. But they also noticed something else is if you step into an infrared sauna, it only heats 10 to 15% of the air. But you actually eye sweat more than a traditional sauna, but you don't get the head rush. And so what it's doing is it's called resonance. It takes the cells and it gets them vibrating back and forth. And so it's as if you're doing jumping jacks. You start sweating from the inside out. And so it's
internal
great
blood.
because it's a deep detoxification. In fact, they used it for the 9/11 responders who actually Tom Cruise had donated some of the infrared saunas for them to use. And when they sweated, they actually wiped their skin and it was blue.
Wow,
They had been
were getting it
exposed to uranium.
detoxifying. Wow.
And so what happens is when we get toxins from our environment, it can be cadmium poisoning or uranium, depending on what, even our carpet has toxins in it. And of course the
Absolutely.
foods we eat, right? So it's harbored in our fat cells. And so when we sweat on that level, it comes out of our pores that way. You need to drink a ton of water. You also need to make sure if you use it as regularly as I do, that you're using minerals as well. And the other thing that I learned about the industry when I became an owner in the industry was not all infrareds created equal. So you can
Yeah, I was
buy
gonna ask you.
you can buy infrared saunas at Costco. You can buy them all over the United States, but some of them are toxic boxes, and I didn't realize that at first.
That's why saunas scare me, because I never, like when you go to a hotel and even the gyms, I work at a lot of gyms,
Yep.
2 specific ones, and have both dry and hot saunas. they scare me because I don't
And they
know
should.
what's
Hot
coming
tubs
out.
scare me.
I don't know what's coming out of those, but
Yeah.
out of those boxes that you walk in. I feel like it should heal, but I don't know what's all being spewed in and what I'm
Right.
breathing in.
So what I learned about that industry, and I'll get to how it works with design now in my life, because my primary business was design. But here, this infrared sauna use, and I also, at the same time, I know this is going to depart from the text, but I had a fair trade company in North Africa, in Tunisia. Yeah. And so that was about me helping these women get on their feet. And so I had all these things going on. And well, then the Arab Spring hit, and my fair trade company that was doing really well, I completely was shut down because of all the uprising over in Tunisia, and I was working over there in Morocco and Tunisia, and it was Americans had to get out of there, and so I was open to the idea of selling these infrared saunas, but I would say almost every company in the United States that sells infrared saunas is buying their heaters in China.
Wow.
There's no certifications. In the United States, you can sell something and it can be snake oil and you get a little slap on the wrist. And so it's really scary when we Google on the internet, there's a lot of misinformation out there. You can't do that in Europe. You can get in jail for that. You know, if you're selling something that's toxic to people, that's very, very dangerous over there. And I'm glad that it is. The FDA has gotten a lot better about it in the United States. But for that reason, for instance, with our infrared, we use only the heaters that are made in France and Germany. They've been tested by laboratories over there. They're medical grade. They're used in cancer centers. We also use near, mid, and far infrared. So when it turns on, it's immediately heated right away. So some of the saunas you'll see on like Costco, the heaters are made in China, and they're infrared, yes, but they're not careful if there's no glues, resins, toxins, even pesticides in the wood, and that's
that are
something
getting
we're
heated
really
up.
careful of.
You're breathing
You're making
in.
everything worse instead of
So
better. You're
what
just
happened to
poisoning
me is
yourself.
I met the owner of Alpha Wellness, who had been building in Europe for 35 years, and they made me an offer to come and work for them. And I said, why would I come and work for you? I work for myself, and I don't need it. But when I understood, and I went over to Belgium, and I saw what they're doing over there, and how they're making it, and how careful they are with their craftsmanship, and I got excited about their designs.
Oh my God, they're
their designs
gorgeous.
are incredible.
Oh.
Red Dot Design Awards,
Yeah.
and they've been doing it for 35 years. And Kuhn himself is very creative, and when someone comes to him with a project and says, "Can we?" they just go, "Yes, bring it on." You know, what do you got? You know, they're very innovative with it. But when I saw what they were doing and the care that they were putting into this product to really help people heal, I actually couldn't sell what I was selling anymore. I was
Wow.
like, no, I don't want anybody in this. It's dangerous.
Really? Wow.
And so that was part of what happened. And then it started branching off. So what we do now is we design spaces based on really what the client's needs are. Everybody, it seems like in the United States, is so stressed out. And that's something that I've learned that I need to take a look at all the time. That's a discipline, is to look at, how am I working? How am I breathing? How am I
What's around
living?
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your
And so-
environment like, and
Right.
how conscientious are you of it?
Right. So I used to design interiors. I started working on exterior spaces, but then as I started designing wellness spaces, I started saying, how can we bring the exterior inward? And there was a doctor, Robert Elric. He's actually an environmental psychologist. He had worked with, another doctor actually wrote a book called Healing Spaces on, her name was Dr. Sternberg. And what she did was she looked at the work of Robert Elric, who realized that people would heal much faster, 30% faster, if they had a window that showed a tree instead of a brick wall. And so they talked about the placebo effect and the ability of the placebo effect to help people heal. So we have the mind-body-spirit connection. I know we've tangent a little bit, but it goes back to that.
Right, of
Because we've
course.
talked about spiritual healing, and now I'm talking about physical spaces, and we've talked about healing of the body. And mind, beautiful thinking, beautiful thoughts is something that we talk about in the community.
And forgiveness, like you said.
And forgiveness, yes,
Huge.
and unconditional love of ourselves and others. But that work of healing spaces really struck a chord to me in my design worlds, because if I could work with a client and really sit down and say, how do you want to feel when you walk into your home. Then they would say, oh, I want this color blue. No. Don't think about the color, the texture. That'll all come later. Close your eyes and give me 5 things that you want this space to feel like. And that's how I started designing spaces.
I love it.
And it just, bam, it helped. And
Great
it didn't,
way to start.
Right. And think about when you go out to dinner, before you even get the menu, either you go, it feels wonderful, or you just can't wait for the check. That has so much to do with the environment and
Absolutely.
the senses.
Yeah.
So with Ambient Elements, we work with other things as well. We work with things like Himalayan salts. We knew salt workers for centuries never got sick because of the negative ions and also because of the antibacterial. So if you go home and you have a Himalayan salt room and you can sit in that room and detoxify and breathe, you're healing your respiratory system. But this is the biggest piece of it, going back to the work of Robert Ulrich, was that he's talking about the placebo effect and where our thoughts are. And so if you can sit in that space and you can use something like the plant medicines where we use here, this is Yucca Verde, and when we smell it, it's directly connecting with the brain and it's calming us. And so it's similar to aromatherapy, and that's what it's doing there. So we can incorporate that into a space, sound, smell, how things feel. And the colors come later.
Yeah.
But the things you're talking about are so potent because they activate our senses.
No, absolutely.
So is
It's
this
like-
this is only for scent? There's no consumption.
But it's considered a sacred plant medicine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and so as soon as you smell it, it's calming to the central nervous system.
Right.
And it helps
Now,
a
is
lot.
that the one that we
So
use as a plant bath, or is that slightly
Very
different?
similar.
Very similar.
They have
yeah.
different variations of it and different meanings behind it. But the community that I work with in Colombia has taught me so much about some of the. We have, for instance, a plant called venturosa that is a plant of protection. That if you're stressed out and you feel like negative energies, you can take that and you can boil it and do a plant bath with it. And these are ancient technologies. Or I shouldn't even say technology. They're ancient medicinals that we forgot about that are so simple and they're not expensive.
And they're right, they're things from our earth, which is where we should be looking anyway. Which is
Well, we used
basically
to
what
look
we're
before the
talking about.
manufacturers came in.
Right.
Yeah,
So
and added all their chemical additions to things.
So with Ambient Elements, we take a mixture of think of sweat lodges that have been around for centuries, and new technology, being able to use something like red light therapy, which is something that we've got patented now. We're getting FDA approval on it. It helps with the collagen of the skin. It eradicates eczema, gets rid of liver and age spots naturally.
I want one.
Right. So
Badly. I want the salt rock one, though. I
Yeah,
love
yeah, they
Well,
love
imagine
salt.
going into a room that does all that for you.
Yeah, I
And
know.
it relaxes, and it's in your own home,
Yeah.
And
Well,
you build those spaces in people's homes, and you do them commercially too, right?
We do commercial spaces,
Yeah.
wellness centers all over the world.
Yeah.
Right now, the largest project is actually happening in Dubai. It's a huge project that has no budget, which is really nice. And it's not about
We all wanna hear
money.
that word.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like an unlimited canvas. You can get really creative.
Well, and
we do
your
everything
best
from
work.
one-person units
Yeah.
to huge wellness centers.
Well,
and
that's what I
everything in
want to talk
between.
to you about for a minute, because we are coming down to the end of the show, if you could believe it or not. But I know that, we're in discussions around a one-unit person unit, because the health benefits are so amazing. So how do people check you out? Give us your website, and also where they can go and do their research on Ambient Elements.
Sure. We have a great profile on Houzz, 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 and it's under Ambient Elements, AMBIENT Elements. I had to think about that for a
it
second.
up on the
I think I
Yeah.
accidentally spelt it as Ambient Elements.
Yeah, and not to confuse people,
a
but
little counterproductive.
we are the U.S. division now of Alpha Wellness, and so both companies, you can look at our website with Alpha Wellness or Ambient Elements. We're the same, and if somebody dreams of having a fish tank in their sauna, we can do it. We've done it.
wow.
We can, and the
Amazing.
fish won't boil, but you'll feel like you're detoxifying under the sea. So we have a huge, a beautiful engineering department, design division.
Now, you're based in San Diego, but you work,
We're national.
national and international.
And
clearly.
international, yes,
Dubai.
yes.
Yes. Wonderful. So we are coming down, and I know we normally ask our guests, you've shared your info, but for final words of wisdom, and I know you have a beautiful quote that you wanted to share with us.
I just, in my morning meditation and reading this morning, actually, Catriona had given me a book, and I was reading that book, and I opened it to this page this morning, and I just wanted to share it because what we're talking about is helping each other, and we're talking about community, and we're talking about coming together. So I'll just do a few minutes of quick reading.
Please do.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, and it's a quote by Rumi, and so
Studied Rumi, actually.
Oh, well, we have to talk more.
Yeah.
Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I will meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about language, ideas, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Wow.
Love that.
Yeah,
yes, definitely one of
so
my...
strong. Very, very potent stuff.
Yes.
It just love what you're doing, and I do want to talk to you further. But on airtime, we are out of time,
Yes.
and
Thank
we
you.
want to thank
Thank
you
you so
all.
much.
so much.
Thank you so much
everyone
for
for
doing what you
listening
do.
in and for calling in, and we will see you next
Yeah,
week.
we'll see you next week. It will be our last show before the holidays, and we're going to talk about that. So do tune in. Thank you for tuning in today. Bye, everybody. Have a great week.
Yes. See you all next week. Bye-bye.